Mojo Monday, Brett.
Monday, my favorite day of the week. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You got a
sun shining.
published book, sir.
I do.
Uh, that's exciting. I think I'd like to just let everybody know you can go to rickhale.com and purchase the book. And if you use the code Mojo Monday,
Just Mojo.
Just Mojo, sorry. It gets you 20% off the book. And I think that's important because we're sitting there talking through your book, right?
We are, and we want to celebrate Mojo Mondays. So that's why the discount, and inspire you to continue to come back, because what we do matters, and we do it for you.
I love it. So last week we were talking about life with purpose, and it's such a powerful thing to have that purpose. You want to give me like a 30-second summary of last week's?
Yeah, I mean, I think the summary judgment is, purpose is fuel, and without purpose, you're not going to do the hard things that lead to great results and a better version of yourself. So purpose means understanding the why behind things that you might choose to engage and put your energy on.
Yeah, I love it. So it's really about that, the title, which is Stop Settling and Live That Regret-Free Life, right?
Yeah, well, sure.
All right. So this week we're going to talk about look farther and think bigger. And I love the fact that you phrase this with two parts to the phrase, because we're actually used to saying think bigger, but the purpose of think bigger means you have to look farther first, right? Break that down a little bit for me.
I think the short answer is that big results and a bigger, better version of yourself isn't, you can't build Rome in a day, as they've said. I mean, it's a great, perspective minded statement. And so until you can look down the lens of a version of you that's so far away, you'll never reach your potential if you can't see what that potential might look like. And potential inside of a day is different than potential inside of a 5-year or 10-year lens. And so that's the real key element, I think, is to figure out where you want to go and then reverse engineer it into a plan, which is how GPS, the global positioning system, works in the world, where it figures out where you are and you tell it where you want to go. And then it maps out turn by turn directions. And if, you can certainly, if you're going from Atlanta to LA, you could put Birmingham and put yourself in the right path. But until you recognize LA, you might actually accidentally go through New York, Wisconsin, North Dakota, wherever, and not achieve your potential soon enough that I think you compound effectively. The sooner you get on the right path, the sooner you'll hit your goals.
Yeah. No, I love it. I'm sitting there thinking about the Appalachian Trail. Like, it starts here pretty close to us in Georgia and then heads all the way up to Maine. And the thought of somebody walking that trail by themselves is just a daunting thought to me. But then again, they're not really walking that trail by themselves. They probably read books around what it's like. They probably researched what gear. Like, there's this concept of, you got to have mentors in a tribe and people around you to enable this thought around look farther and think bigger. Can you develop that a little bit for us? Yeah.
So sometimes the last thing I said was, you've got to be able to visualize yourself somewhere down the road in a state of greatness or improved state or purposeful state, if you will. And sometimes it's hard to see in ourselves what others see in us. And it's also hard to visualize ourselves in the mirror. And it's easier to emulate and see what, this has happened so many times in my life, where just when I think I'm hitting a ceiling, I go to an event or a mastermind with somebody or collaborate, and they share their perspective, and it changes the way I saw it. And it changes the paradigm of potential. And I'm like, oh, you just need to do this and this, and you get that. And if I just modify or add a person, and it's often a who, not a what. And man, that's just what, they say you're the average of the 3 to 5 people you spend the most time with. And I don't disagree. And the best part of that statement is that you actually get to choose where you invest time and with whom. And you can strategically go out and find people that elevate your thinking and perspective and your paradigm. I was just, again, I said on the last call, I hosted a weekend with some of my mastermind friends that are in GoBundance, and these are high net worth, really good people going places. And it was interesting that one of the participants, Michael says, it's weird that at this age I have to pay for friends. And I thought, what a weird way to put it. But what he was really saying is, I have to invest a lot of money to join a networking group or a tribe of people who are thinking where I want to be, not where I am. And if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room. And I thought, man, what a weird way to, and I said, maybe spend that less, pay for friends, more invest in experiences and relationships that help you evolve into a better you.
There you go. One of the things you dive into in this book is a statement that Tony Robbins actually makes. It says, success leaves clues. And I think this really speaks to the tribe concept, the mentor concept, right? Like it's that power of mentorships. And then Rick, you talk about when you were learning to, or you were choosing to get into music. And the music teacher said, look at them trombone lips on Rick Hale. And I love this story in the book. But I actually want to use music for a minute. Like, how does success leaves clues? You're an accomplished musician. I know you, in your mind, you don't think you're a rock star, 100,000 stadium guitar player, but at the same time, to me, you're an accomplished musician, right? How did music in your life really cause you to look farther and think bigger?
Well, the interesting thing is, if I'll start here, if there's something in your heart and mind that when you stop and self-reflect that you should be exploring and expanding and growing into or becoming, and to deny it, I think at some point that's where regret lives. It's when you should have, could have, would have, and didn't. And so music was one of those things for me. I was in college. I did play trombone in elementary and middle school, and there's some cool stories about some success. And I think the lesson there was I was probably a pretty good trombone player. Thank you for illustrating the lips. I'm going to leave that story. You'll have to read the book to get the big lip story. But what I learned was that if I played my simple part in harmony and in sequence and in conjunction with other people, you could create symphonies in junior high school, like really nice, like collaboration is the greatest gift on the planet, because it's the stone soup story. You don't have to bring the whole soup, but in that story, everyone contributes one thing, and ultimately you end up with something great. And music was like that. And I was insecure early on, and I decided the bass guitar was the best path for me, just because it had fewer strings and you only play one note at a time. And as silly as that sounds, that was my brain visualizing, what can I actually accomplish that at least puts me in the arena, in the game, with people that I can learn and grow with and from. And then I was really blessed to have a friend who was very creative and artistic, who could play some guitar, who believed in me. So there was the element of believing in me and camaraderie and creative energy of 1 + 1 being 3. We ended up writing a song the first time we sat down, and I'd only been playing bass guitar for a few months. And I wasn't accomplished, but it was really fulfilling to create art together. It's like everyone grabs a paintbrush and starts throwing colors on canvas, and sometimes it's beautiful, sometimes it's not, but it's always something that's different than you brought exclusively on your own, if that makes sense.
100%.
Yeah.
So who were your mentors? Who were your tribe?
Well, I acknowledge them in the book. I mean, there's been every band I've ever been in made me a better musician, because it forced me to listen differently, feel differently, and engage differently to complement what they were doing. And so, there's a real strong crossover in all aspects of life for this. And, and I learned too that, I'm only as good as the people I'm with, and my capacity to grow is only as good as their capacity to share. Yeah. And so by hanging out with top level talented people, you become a better performer, player, intuitively. It's organic.
Rick, I got to admit, like when I was reading this chapter, you really spell out all the people and all the different bands that you had ever played with. And I remember thinking, man, how does this relate? Like, this is, it's almost like you just kind of given us a timeline. And when I got to it, I read it, and then I stopped and I thought, and I went, this was his tribe. These are the people that you surrounded yourself with that caused you to really grow in your music abilities. And that's why it was important to be in the book, because it's part of that journey, right? And it's around, we're the sum of who we surround ourselves with.
100%. And to give
Yep.
credit, to those that, on the shoulders of giants, we're running around, and it's easy to think that we've done lots of things, but without those role models and mentors, it's highly unlikely that you would have woken up and visualized yourself to that. It's just rare to have that superpower.
Yeah.
And so I think tapping your community and your tribe and constantly working to top grade the people that are influencing you will change your life forever.
Were they challenging you along the way?
Of course, there was commitment. There was, go learn this. Then you've got to perform it in front of people, and it's one thing to play in a garage band to your friends at the house, a house party. It's another to play a venue with 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 people. And I've experienced both. And so there's the writing and creative element, and then there's the performance element. And it's like every craft on the planet, the more you do it, the better you get at it. And again, when you're hanging out with talented people, you can have a mistake or two that no one notices, because the collective is powerful and more powerful than your part alone. And it's to some degree that it actually adds pressure, and to some degree it takes away pressure because someone's got your back.
100%.
And I think, again, the crossover into business in this conversation is undeniably obvious.
Yeah, we're talking music, but I'm here in business, right? Like, I realize we're talking about bands and people challenging you, and all I'm hearing is business, right?
Well, and inside of that are experiences, and this came up in a recent mastermind too. Like, this fellow said, I want experiences that are worthy of a photograph that I'll treasure for the rest of my life. And I thought, man, that's cool. And what I heard was, you're doing things that add to the narrative around positive relationships and positive challenges and positive opportunities. And it doesn't mean you win them all, but you're throwing darts at the bullseye. You're not hoping to just hit the board.
100%. I love it. There's this concept you briefly talk about being a small fish in a big pond. And I think one of the things that is really powerful in life is this concept of, if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? And we've talked about that, I think, on Mojo before. But what does it really mean to you? Small fish in a big pond.
You kind of framed it up beautifully, Brett. If you're the most successful, the most talented, the most capable person in your pod, group, tribe, name it, in your environment, you're probably honestly debilitated to the extent you're not growing, because it's hard to go beyond your ceiling of achievement hanging out with people who, like anchors or nipping at your ankle. Like, it's not liberating and it's not inspiring, and you're probably going to grow slower, even if you're purposefully intent on it. And so that whole, you're the product of your environment comes to mind. And for me, it showed up in my, fifth year in real estate, first year with Keller Williams. I was invited to Gary Keller's top 100 mastermind, which back then you did, if you made a couple $100,000, I think maybe 100, 150 there was a benchmark, and it was high. And I was well above that, double or triple that, thinking, hey, I have a seat at the table. I've earned the right. And the interesting thing about that realization is, when I got there, we went around the room and introduced ourselves, the magnitude of our teams, the GCI goals, the income goals. And by about the fifth person out of 23 or 4 that were there, I realized I am way underachieving relative to these people. Like, I went from feeling like a big fish to a guppy, and it was intimidating, but it was also with the right character, culture, and heart. If you're in a room with people who care, everyone wants you to succeed. And I it's like the Grinch, man. My heart grew 6 sizes in a day when I realized not how great I am, but how great I could be with this new paradigm of potential.
Yeah.
And so I was a really small fish who wanted to grow into, their success stories. And it really helped to model, emulate, and hear it. And what became impossible, like the 4-minute mile with Roger Bannister, became very possible. And it's just having a better plan, better executables, a better team, maybe a little more commitment, maybe a little more work ethic. Maybe I do need to stay on task just a little bit longer every day.
Yeah. I've got a thought. Last Monday we were talking about life with purpose and how empowering it is to speak possibility or speak miracle language into people so that they can grow into those conversations. And I'm sitting here in this conversation going, well, if I'm the smartest guy in the room, I'm in the wrong room. How do I balance that? I need to be the mentor to the next generation, but I also need to make sure I'm in the right tribe, I'm in the right room, causing me to look farther and think bigger.
Yeah. So I think if you accept the law of reciprocity, Brett, and you accept the law of contribution, that you're only going to get back what you're able to give, then I think your life mission should be to grow as fast and far as you can so that you actually have something worthy of giving. And if we're mirrors and attracting people like us, as you continue to top grade, you become more attractive to people who've already top graded or on the same path. And that fuel is it's addictive. And it's also, there's a multiple of 1 and 1 equals 3, the capacity of collaboration and of shared vision. And so that's the gift.
In my head, I want to make sure people hear that, yes, you want to make sure you surround yourself with people that are causing you to look farther and think bigger. But there's also the power of mentoring the next generation. There's also
100%
a blend there. Because I think
like I said,
like pushing away people that aren't as successful as them and just trying to play the game, but it's actually a well-rounded game you got to play.
It is. And we've said this many times, Brett, if you want to learn something at the highest level, commit to teaching it. Yeah. And if it's life goals, that's a whole nother level of mentorship and teaching. And it's way bigger than, the single lane of, health, fitness, or financial or investing. I mean, this is a collective conversation. It's world changing.
100%. 30 seconds on who Roger Bannister is, because it's only fair you answer a question out of the back of the chapter, sir.
What's my Roger Bannister moment?
I'm going there, but tell me 30 seconds. Who's Roger Bannister?
This is the guy to run the 4-minute, first time to break the barrier of a 4-minute mile. And soon after, half a dozen people were able to do it because they've now established what was once believed impossible was not just possible, but capable, not a possibility, but a probability for the right talented people.
There you go. So question number 5 at the back of the chapter says, have you ever had a Roger Bannister moment when you suddenly realized or proved that you could do that amazing feat or reach that ambitious goal that others felt was impossible? Rick Hale, what's yours?
The easiest to share. I mean, I've had a ton of them. The first year I sold 100 houses. The first time I fill in the blank, first child, those are all Rogers where you're like, I didn't know if I could do it. And here I am, I'm in the job. I whether I voted for it or not. But the easiest answer is writing this book. It was a labor of love. This was not it's funny, again, slowly, then suddenly. The process was so slow, and now it's suddenly available to the universe, and I'm now required to go do something with it. But, the sheer fact that author is now on my resume was a hopeful thought that's now reality because of a plan, and I had passion for it. And I let the plan evolve and percolate until it was, ready.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, what do we learn from this? What is look farther, think bigger? What is the big lesson you hope that people take out of this chapter?
That you have infinite capacity in the right environment.
Boom.
The environment's a big deal.
Yeah.
An environment means physical environment. It's also your social environment. It's also your mentorship and coaching environment. It's the company you choose to align with and the character and culture that, hopefully resonates at the heart level so that your head follows it. Without heart, your head's going to talk yourself in and out of things every 10 minutes.
Yeah. I think whether you're playing an individual sport or a team sport, or you're going at business individually or as a team, it's always a team. It just depends on whether or not your relationship is tied or not. You still have that tribe. You still have that mentor. None of us do this alone.
No one succeeds at a high level alone.
You're part of my tribe, sir.
Yes, sir.
Monday.
Mojo Monday. We love you guys. Make it a great week.